In this video, I'm going to give you a few traps to look out for when you start healing or you start your awakening process. These are very common traps, and I don't hear a lot of people talk about them very much. They could be quite surprising. My name is Adam. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we get started, I just want to let you know I have a free energy clearing in the description below. If you're new to healing or you've been healing for a while, this is a very powerful clearing. You can use it as often as you like, so I recommend downloading it. Okay, now, let's get started. So if you're beginning your healing or awakening process, there are a few things that we tend to expect. And I want to warn you of these because what I find is that all of our disappointment comes from our expectations. And a lot of our expectations are just not accurate. It's not really good to have too much of an expectation for anything, but it's really not good to have an irrational expectation for something because you're guaranteed, in that case, to be disappointed because what you're trying to achieve is impossible. Okay, so the first thing to look out for, don't expect everything to get all better right away. And I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You're gonna set yourself up to get very, very disappointed. And it's important to understand that the point of the awakening process and the healing process isn't to just be magically cured of everything in 3 seconds. Because what it does is it creates a pattern that you will have for the rest of your life if you don't release it. And it comes from a pattern that we all already have, which is the desire to be instantly gratified. Now, it's very easy if you start to heal a little or you start to awaken a little and you get a glimpse of a different sort of reality to want to just be done with the pain. And I totally get that because a lot of us have been in pain for a very long time, not just this lifetime. But if you've gone through a childhood and, traumatic teenage years and adulthood and relationships and it starts to get better, you just want to be done with it. And it's kind of ironic because everybody I talk to is like, I'm tired of the healing. And it's like, when did you wake up? 6 months ago. It's like, I hear that from people who've been doing it for 25 years. But it does get better and better and better and better and better. But understand that the point isn't for all of your pain to be taken away right away. And that's not even a good goal. The goal of healing isn't to be in perfect bliss all the time. The goal of healing is to learn about the healing process because in a way it's an endless process. It improves consistently, but we're always evolving. And so you can call evolving and healing the same thing. Now granted, when you're way in trauma versus when you're in a pretty good space but you're continuing to get better, it seems different, but you still could term it the same. We're always expanding and going through ourselves. Because we've been so externally focused for so long, we're wanting all of the outside to immediately line up with this idealistic state of perfection so that our lives could be beautiful. But that's not how we end up happy. Nor do we end up happy by attaining enlightenment and being in bliss every second. The most empowering thing you can learn, and this is just a fact, on earth, is how to take yourself from a negative mental or emotional state, and they're connected, to resolve the things going on within yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Release it by following what triggered you and bring yourself back into balance after having released the underlying patterns that got triggered. Because ultimately, that's the only power any of us have. We keep waiting for our lives out there to get perfect, but you're always going to have things coming at you that trigger you emotionally or trigger you mentally. You don't just all of a sudden get all the way better. You have to learn the skill set, which takes time. It's like learning a martial art. You don't go from 0 to black belt in 2 days because you had a spiritual awakening. It doesn't work that way. It takes practice, it takes repetition, it takes discipline, it takes learning about yourself, learning about your thoughts, learning about your body, learning about your emotions, learning how to release them, learning how to track the trauma and the imprint, finding the trigger, finding the belief systems underneath the trigger and taking them apart. That's self-mastery. That's what you're here to learn. You don't get there in 3 seconds. And when you understand that that is the goal, you stop creating these unrealistic expectations that then bring all this disappointment that you get super traumatized about because you have a false goal. And it becomes fun because that's where your power is. Because then when you get triggered or you feel bad emotionally, you don't go into I'm helpless and I'm powerless and I'm a victim and this sucks, which is how we spend most of our lives because we weren't trained how to deal with those things. You go into, okay, cool. I can go into this, figure it out, release it, and up level. And then every time you get triggered, you kind of go like, oh my God, I can up level. And you start to connect the two. It's the most empowering thing anyone can learn, period. The next trap to watch out for. Don't expect any healer or spiritual person to cure you. Don't think that because you see healers or coaches that it's their job to fix you, or that because you're not noticing the progress that you want, that it's their fault. It could be sometimes. There are a lot of people who aren't very well trained. There are a lot of people who don't really have what they say they have. But regardless of that, at the end of the day, it comes down to you. You're the one with the power. The healer or the coach is there to hold a space for you to allow you to heal yourself. Now, it's tricky because it isn't all you either. You want to err on the side of it being you, not the other person, because then you're giving your power away. But it's truthfully, it's like a dance. We share codes. When somebody goes through an event within themselves and they heal the trauma, they heal the wounds, they heal the imprints, and they get the realization of how to come out the other end, it's like they gain energetic codes. It's like a hint book that they can give you energetically to show you how to clear that within yourself. I worked for a tech company for a long time, and one of the things that programmers would do if they were trying to learn some new code is they would always look for an example from another coder. Like, this is an example of how you solve this kind of problem. This is how they do it in math books too. Right? They'll give you an example of a problem, and then you kind of see how the structure works, and then you take it and you apply it to yourself, and you apply it to different problems that are harder and harder and harder. That's what a healer basically does. It holds the space for you to heal yourself and also kind of download the codes that they have because of what they've gone through. You always want to generally find people that have gone through and been through what you've been through because they have the example. Okay? And the third thing to understand if you're just beginning to awaken or to heal, just because you feel like something isn't working doesn't mean that it isn't. When you start to heal stuff, it can get very complicated because oftentimes, I'm sure maybe you've heard this, maybe you maybe you heardn't, maybe you haven't. Things get worse before they get better. It's like if you had a whole bunch of monsters in a closet that you're not looking in and they're just kind of hiding out in there. They're in there, but you're not looking. When you turn on the light and you shine it in there, they all start screaming and scattering about, and it looks like it's getting worse, but you're closer to the resolution because they're leaving, right? That's how it is with healing. But you can't ever really tell what something does. A lot of people will credit the moment they feel better with whatever was around them as the cause. And what they'll do, what we all do, is like, say we have a session with an acupuncturist and we have this huge revelation. we will then go, oh, thank God, I worked with all these other people and they didn't do shit. Well, that could be true because maybe you worked with a bunch of people that didn't have anything to offer you, but a lot of times that's not true at all. I had this soul coach once tell me, it's like, you can have somebody go to like all these phenomenally gifted healers and they'll do these massive clearings on their energy field and their body and they will release so much stuff, but it won't hit this point yet of critical mass to where they feel it, and then they may just go get a massage somewhere and all of a sudden, boom, they have this massive transformation and they'll be like, oh, thank you to the massage therapist. And it's like, it's not that it wasn't the massage therapist, but it was all the other stuff that they did leading up to then. And that was just, the massage therapist was just like the cherry on top of the sundae. It was just the one that like the whole house was ready to fall down and they just walked up and pushed it. They're not crediting the people that had sledgehammers for years just like banging on that thing until it was ready to just be pushed over. And that's how the healing process works. So you never want to look back. You never want to invalidate your past experience ever. You always want to understand that each step you've taken, each decision you've made, each up level, each clearing, everything is connected to who you are now. And at the same time, you're a new person in every moment. But that's how, see, in order to really be in the moment free from the past, you want to validate and acknowledge your past because you're bringing it into love and acceptance, which brings you into the moment. If you look back at your past and you're like, that didn't work, you're now sticking to it because you're resisting it. So always seek to find why everything that you've been through, whatever it is, has helped you up into this moment. The path of awakening and healing can be very all over the place and non-linear. And it can be very seemingly paradoxical. Like 1 minute we'll be like, I know I need to get off meds today. I just know I need to stop taking my psych meds, and we'll get off the psych meds and all this stuff will come up to clear and we'll be sure that this was the right decision and it will release and we'll feel better. And then 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, we'll be like, oh shit, I think I'm not ready to get off them yet. I still need to be on them. And you'll go back on them. And then you'll turn back into the past and be like, I never should have made that decision to get off them. It's like, no, that's not true. You needed to get off them for 3 to 4 weeks and clear everything that came up. And then it was time to go back on them for now. It's like it changes moment to moment what's best for you. And you don't want to write anything off. Anyway, I hope these tips helped. Let me know how this goes. If you have any revelations, breakthroughs, questions. Otherwise, I look very forward to seeing you next time, and peace.